are seeing my screen and hearing my voice. So if you could, let me know. Oh, some of you are pros at this because you're already answering. Okay, great. Thank you. I do appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk about Business Analyst. It's probably the most used tool within the Site to Do Business Toolkit because that is where we get our primary demographic information, consumer spending, crime numbers, and a lot of the things that people use when they're doing a market analysis. So it has had a recent change, and we want to go through those today so you understand what has changed and how that impacts you, and some of the new tools that you can use that you have access to and how they're applicable to you. All right, so this change took place last week, actually the night of June 27th, and what changed is our data is now primarily, then I'm going to show you where there are a couple of exceptions once we get into the site, but mostly updated now to 2017 data estimates with 2022 projections. So what was in the site on June 26th was 2016 with 2021 projections, and now we do have the 2017 with 2022. Just so you can kind of keep up with when those happen, when those generally occur. It's usually about the middle of the summer. Esri has their big conference out in San Diego in July, and they really strive to have these updated numbers before that conference takes place. The second thing we're going to talk about is historical traffic data and how you can now put that on the map. We were able to do that at one point a long time ago. Now we can do it again, and it's enhanced, and we'll talk about how you can use that in different ways. You can visualize it on the map. We have some new mapping options, and the one that we'll probably spend the most time on today is maps using two variables. However, we're going to be using the color-coded map. You know, typically with the color-coded map, we could only do one variable. With the smart map, we could do 5. Well, now you can do 2 variables with the color-coded map and make some really interesting maps and do some really interesting analysis with that. Some of you may not be that familiar with the suitability analysis that is within the site, so because it's a fairly new feature. It didn't just get released last week, but in the classes I've been teaching recently, I've had a lot of people who are not familiar with this tool at all. So we're going to go through it very briefly, and then I will show you the one thing that has changed about the suitability analysis, and that is the ability to save the criteria. So if you're going to be using the same criteria, when you do these types of analysis, you don't have to recreate them every time. And then probably the thing that we'll spend least amount of time on today is the improvement to infographics. Now that's not because it's the least important. It may be one of the more important things, but we're having another webinar towards the end of the month, which is going to be all about reports and creating reports and custom reports, and we're going to spend a lot more time on infographics during that webinar, but we will touch on that. Okay, so let me see if there's any questions before I move forward. Will you have access to my slides? No, because that's the end of the slides right there, but I'm going to show you where you can get some information that is even better than the slides that I'm showing you right now. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go to stdb.com, and before we actually log in, everyone should be seeing the home page of stdb.com, and I'm going to go to the Learning Center. Now you can access the Learning Center whether you're logged in or not. It is a public site. And if you want to come and get a little bit more information about what we're going to cover today, here are the same bullet points that we just went over. So that's why I say I'm not going to share my slides, because here it is right here. It's already shared. And then there's a little video here that very brief, I think it's 5 or 10 minutes, that Esri actually created that will also go over the changes. Maybe not to the detail that we're going to today, but it's a very nice video, and so this will give you some great information about those changes as well. All right, so that is the Learning Center. Now, people ask all the time, are we recording? Yes, we're recording. We already discussed that. We are archiving. We will be posting this webinar on the webinars page over here on the Watch Saved Webinar side. So it will be right in here later this afternoon or tomorrow if you want to come back and revisit. Okay, Site to Do Business. Let's go log in. And once we get logged in, today we are focused on simply one tool within Site to Do Business. And there's nothing simple about it. It's a very complex tool, but we're going to spend all of our time on Business Analyst. So let's go ahead and go into Business Analyst, and you will see here on the home page the announcement of 2017-2022 U.S. demographics. So we're going to go right in now to Maps, and I am just going to start by identifying a location, and I just went to Define Areas for Reports. And I'm just going to create a quick study area. And I'm just going to do, we'll just do a 5-mile radius around that. Quick and easy. And then I'm going to go in to run reports. So you can see some of these reports and the new data that's in it. Now, we have 4 different ways to create reports, and this is what we're going to be spending time on in that webinar a little bit later this month. I think it's July 26th, if I'm not mistaken, but it's on the Learning Center, so you can find out. But we're going to spend all of our time on how to create these reports. But for right now, we're going to go into Run Reports, and here we're going to find the Esri templated reports. So all of this data has been updated with the 2017 data and the 2022 projections. It's hard for us to get used to because we're used to saying the other numbers so much. I'm just going to choose just a couple of demographic reports and maybe a retail report. And then also, I am going to run an ACS population report because here is the one exception. All of the reports and all of the variables have been updated with the exception of the ACS data. That stands for the American Community Survey. For those of you who may not be familiar with that data, it's actually a survey that the government uses to kind of enhance or to kind of support what they don't get in the census, all right? So that data, I believe, is still 2000 to 2014, 2010 to 2014. But you'll see that the demographic data is now got the 2017, 2022, which you would expect to see. All right, and as I scroll through, then you'll see the retail marketplace profile. A lot of times when we get new data, the retail reports will lag behind a little while, but we were very pleased this time because all of the reports got the 2017 data at the same time. Now, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through this very quickly because the purpose here isn't to really show you the data as much as let you understand what vintage of data we got. So the ACS population report, you can see that that's still showing the 2010-2014, but everything else has been updated. All right. Now, another thing, I'm going to go back to, we don't need that report any longer. So any of these templated reports that you now go and access, with the exception of the ACS, will be updated. Another thing when it comes to variables and reports that Esri is trying to help us with is to understand what some of the variables mean a little bit better. So I'm going to go now back into reports, and this time I'm going to go into comparison reports just so you can see what I mean. So I'm going to go to customize and act like I'm going to create a comparison report. And let's say that I'm interested in daytime population. So that's all I'm going to type in here is daytime. And you'll see when I get to a result and it says 2017 daytime population. Okay, that's great. But what does that actually mean to me? So another thing that they've started adding, and you'll see more and more of this as we go and as we have many releases, is these little eyes over here, information over here on the right-hand side. They're really working on giving us some good information about what does this variable actually mean. So if I'm hovering over 2017 daytime population workers, then what does that mean? And it gives me a definition over here, the vintage of the data, and tells me that it's the total number of workers, which includes civilian employed at work, commuters and non-commuters, and armed forces personnel on and off base. So that's really good data to understand now what really makes up daytime population when it comes to workers according to ESRI's data. So look for these little icons over to the right if you have any question about what something really means, and you will start seeing more and more information there. All right, questions? I can see some coming in. Okay. Are you guys still seeing me okay? Because I have somebody saying that all they're saying is let's get started. Okay, so everybody else is doing good? You're seeing my screen and hearing my voice? Yes, okay, good, thank you. It's one of my biggest fears, especially we have a pretty large group today. And so it always makes me nervous if I don't have someone on the staff backing me up. It makes me nervous that I could lose you and be talking for 30 minutes and not know that you're no longer there. So thank you for being patient with me. All right, so that's kind of the first thing, the update of the data, and then those additional pieces of information about data. All right, so I'm going to go back to the maps now. And one thing that we used to have in our LSAT, and I hate talking about what we used to have, but this was the reason I mention it is because some people really missed this feature when it was no longer available, and that was the ability to put traffic counts on the map. And that is back, and it's been enhanced. So I have just navigated to Kansas City, and I'm just going to kind of zoom in and out right there. And all I did was just type in Kansas City up here and hit go or hit search. And now over here on the right-hand side, our vertical panel, there's been a couple of changes, and the one at the very bottom you will notice is add boundaries and labels on the map. Now we used to be able to come up to more maps, and we had 3 tabs here, base maps, web maps, and boundaries. Now that has been moved down here. So if you wanted to add zip code boundaries or state boundaries or names, you can do that there. But right above that is what we're going to talk about next, and that is the ability to add historical traffic. So with the click of a button, I'm zoomed into Kansas City, and all I'm going to do is click that button, and you'll see that it's going to start working. Okay. Now, what it defaults to is the yellow and orange that you see here, smaller dots mean that there's less traffic, larger means that it's a higher volume of traffic. Now let's talk about all of the things that you can do with this tool. Because one of the things that we are sometimes concerned with is the date of the traffic count. So one of the things that you can do is you can say, all right, I'm not interested in seeing anything on this map that is older than, we'll say 2013. Okay, you see that when I did that, that cleared a lot out of my map. And let's say you see Highway 70 runs through here. So what if I only wanted to see traffic on Highway 70? I can also type in, that's all I want to see is everything on 70. Okay, so I've typed that in. If I no longer want that there, then I can remove that. I can look at all traffic counts, annual daily traffic, annual weekday traffic, all of these different things. And you see the little eyes here, so it'll give you a little bit more information about what that particular variable means. You can also say, I've got to have at least 25,000 traffic counts, so you can manipulate that as well, either by typing it in or by sliding it. I'm going to open that back up so we see them all. Now, let's say that we wanted to style this a little bit differently. And you can see if I go to style, then I have a lot of different options here. And you know, if you've been in any of my classes, that I tell you all the time, if there's a little bitty triangle anywhere that you see, that means there's good stuff behind it. There's more information. There's other things for you to have there. So you see here, this is the one I'm going to show you. There's a lot of different ways you can style this, but this is the one that I think is most interesting and most valuable, and that is the traffic year and count, which gives you color and size. So once I select that, you'll see that it changes for me, and I can see that now I have different colors going on. I can do this by year. I can do high to low. I can change this above and below a certain range if you wanted to. I'm going to leave it high to low. So if I go to the legend, let's see now, what is this showing me? So if the darker the circle is, the darker the color in the circle, that means it's the more recent traffic count. And the larger the circle, the higher the traffic count. So if we're looking for the most recent, and the highest traffic count, then we're going to be looking, sorry, something just fell. We're going to be looking for these areas that have the higher counts, the most recent counts, and so it's pretty easy now to spot where those are. All right, so not only now do we have traffic back on the map, but you have a lot of flexibility in how you put that on the map and what that means to you. I know I'm going to get some questions about this. So, all right, is the oldest 2015 for the traffic count? That's the most recent. Hang on, let me move this out of the way. So I'll go back to the filters. So we do have, if I scoot this over, there was something in here from 2016, but most of these counts were from 2014 and 15. And if you hover over any of them, then you can see you will get a pop-up that says right here, there's 67,197 vehicles, annual daily traffic, and this was taken in 2014. So in the past couple of years, what we had to do is go run a report that would have the actual dates on it. To me, this makes a whole lot more sense, a lot easier to read, and plus then you can come over here. If you want to include this in some kind of a presentation to a client, you can come over here and create a PDF image of this and put a nice little heading on it. I'll show you what that looks like when it's complete, and you can put that in the map. So here's your traffic map, pretty much like we have it created. This was one I did earlier and went ahead and captured. And that will print out as a nice little PDF for you. All right. Do you like that? See, I think that's good stuff. But those of you who know me know I get excited about it. It's like Christmas when we get new things in the site. All right. Okay, so we're going to move on past traffic counts now. And so I'm going to use my clearing tool. I'm going to clear everything off of the map. And I'm going to stay here in Kansas City to talk about the next addition on the map. And that is in the color-coded mapping area. So we have for some time been able to come in and, as I said when we were beginning, create a color-coded map based on one variable. And we've done that for several years. We used to call them thematic maps. Now we call them color-coded maps. But it's the same either way. but we could only use one variable in our color-coded maps. In the Smart Map, we could use 5, and that has remained the same. But there has been an addition, quite an interesting addition to color-coded maps, and this is something that you people that are members, our wonderful members, have asked for, and it makes sense. And so let's go into color-coded map. So let's say that we want to map based on growth in an area. Okay, so that's great. If we want to see, okay, where's the growth going to be in the Kansas City area? Now you'll see that things look a little bit different over here if you use this tool much. It's showing us that we are mapping 2017 to 2022 growth. So we're mapping a percentage by year, and we are mapping at the block group level. If we wanted to, we could change that to census tract, zip codes. We could zoom in, zoom out. We can change the style on this as well if we wanted to, but I'm going to stay right here because one of the things that people always ask is, okay, so this tells us that what the growth is going to be in this area, but I did not mean to do that, but it doesn't tell us, is it growing from a population that's very low? Is it growing from a population that's very high? So that could be a very powerful map if you could add that variable, and now you can. So we've got our growth variable already mapped. Now let's go add one more variable, and in this case we're going to do 2017 population. Now I'm just using two specific variables in this illustration. However, you can use any two variables that you want. So I'm going to do 2017 population. And you see here that I can base this, once it's mapped, I can go back and look at 2000, 2010, so you can see how things have changed over time. But so I've got it right now at 2017. We could take that out to 2022. But I'm going to leave it at 2017 because we're going to start with the population that we have here now, and then we're going to look at what's expected in the next 5 years. Okay, so if we go in and style this, once again, you saw the little ability to switch it there, then we can do counts and amounts, colors and size, or colors and amounts. I'm going to tell you that I think color and size is a great way to be able to look at this and get some very valuable information out of it. So let's look at the legend and see what is this telling us. Actually, I'm going to zoom a bit out. So now what this is telling us is the areas where we see the darker colors, we're projecting a higher growth. The areas where we're seeing the larger circles is a higher population. So let's say we want to see where's the low population that's projected to grow. So we could come in here and we could see in this block group, and you can change this to zip codes, census blocks, whatever you want to. But if you look here, this census block group and this area has a population of 702. It's projected to grow at 1.2% per year. So you can easily see on your map where the areas of high or low population are now and how that relates to the projected growth in the area. Hope I didn't lose anyone on that one. It's a pretty powerful tool. And as I said, you can use any variables that you want. Okay, that generated some questions. So let's see here. Let me back up a little bit. And if I don't get to your question during this session, please forgive me. You can email me afterwards. Okay, so someone is having a hard time seeing the video of the presentation. I haven't heard anyone else who's having a problem with that. I hope if you aren't able to see it, remember we are recording it and will be available on the Learning Center. Is drive time analysis based on traffic counts or speed data? That's a great question, and if you'll give me one moment, I will go and answer that. That's not something that's changed recently on Business Analyst, but I will address that question. Yes, is there any way to upload your company logo? Yes, absolutely. I will answer that question real quickly. If you go up here to this little wheel, you go into Preferences, and then down to Reports, and then go to Logo. So it's Preferences, Report, Logo. Then you upload your company logo there, and they will be present then after that on all of your reports. Can you put, great question here, can you put client locations on the map and then add the traffic? Yes. So if we already had a layer of just points of buildings or of study areas that had radius or polygons or drive times, then you could add this traffic layer on top of that. Yes. What is the source of the data and how valid is it? You may need to clarify what data you're speaking of, because whether that's the traffic or the demographic information. Can you create thematic maps based on your own data set? Okay. Bear with me, because that's something we're going to look at when we get to the suitability analysis. So bear with me one second. All right, any other questions on this traffic data? Hopefully you're happy to see this back. I will tell you, this is a very difficult data set. And so this comes from a company that updates when the municipalities update to them. There's no real incentive for the municipalities to update, and so it's really tough to have current traffic counts nationwide. But this is a great source to get you started. If you go to an area where you do have 2016 counts, then that's great. Like here in Kansas City, where we are right now, these are pretty recent counts. I mean, we've got some 2016, 2014 to 2016. If you want something more recent, you may need to reach out to your state Department of Transportation or with your municipality. But this will give you a great start and can create some nice maps for you in your analysis. Okay, so that's it with traffic, and also with creating a color-coded map using two variables. So remember, to create that map, you come into Creating Maps for Office, Creating Maps from Data, I'm sorry, and then you can choose any two variables that you want. In this case, we did population and then also growth, because that seems to be what we get the most questions about. Is growth is great, but if it doesn't tell you what you're growing from, then or to, then sometimes that's not enough information. All right, I'm going to clear the map again. And now we're going to talk about that, the question that I got just a moment ago. This isn't, as I said, this isn't new for business analysts. Because I got the question, I will go back to the question of the drive time. All right, so if you're creating a new area within Business Analyst, you do have the option to create, obviously, rings, walk times, or drive times. when you go into the drive time, and it doesn't matter whether you're working from the workflow right here on the map or the workflow over on the left, they're exact same workflow, so either one is fine. If you come into more options here, this is fairly new. This is probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 months old, I would say, that it's been in here. You do have the ability to change this to driving time, rule time, or trucking time. You can now do away from the facility towards the facility, or you can use traffic. You could use traffic from now plus 3 hours, plus 9 hours, or I think what most people really like is traffic that is based on typical conditions for, let's say, Tuesday afternoon at, let's say, 7:45 a.m. Okay, so if you apply that, it's not going to give you a count for the person who was asking that question, but it does base the drive time on all of these things that you enter, away from the facility, toward the facility, and the traffic. So hopefully that answered that question. All right. For the person who's asking about the regional chain of stores, you might want to reach out to me afterwards. I'll make sure you guys have my email address afterwards. Are white collar and blue collar data available for maps? Yes, they are. And you should be able to create those in the comparison report or in the creating maps from data. What is the latest traffic count info for the state of Florida? I'm not sure. You would have to go to that area because, like I say, these were just updated last week, and so I'm not sure who has the most current right now. I've been going from city to city and playing with a lot, but I haven't really done a lot in Florida. Are there traffic counts on state and federal highways? Yes, those are included as well. Where, again, do you find those historical traffic counts? Let me, I'll show you right here. It's on the vertical toolbar over here on the right-hand side. You can see the little 2 cars right there, and all you have to do is click it, and it will add the traffic layer to the map. All right. Okay, let's talk about suitability analysis now. This is a fairly new tool, so I am going to walk you through how to create a suitability analysis, and then I'm going to show you what was just added to that suitability. All right, so the first thing that we want to do when we're creating a suitability analysis is we need to add some data to the map, we're going to say. So let me show you what data I'm going to add, and then this will help you when we start talking about what has changed in the last week or so within this tool. So this is a pretty powerful tool in and of itself because it is going to be the tool that's going to allow you to evaluate an area not only using the variables that are available within the Esri tools, but also your own data. So if you look here at this spreadsheet that I have created here, I've got 10 different sites in North Carolina, and I've got latitude and longitude, which is always ideal if you've got that to use as your geocoding point. But I've also got here available square footage, building size, and a lease rate that I want to use in my evaluation. All right, so once again, this is a spreadsheet that I created based on data that I got from another source. Okay, the data about lease rate, building size, none of that came from Site to Do Business. And as a matter of fact, we typically get pretty creative when we're doing these things. Since we're not brokers and we don't have real data, we make a lot of things up. Okay, so where I would start with this, if I wanted to add this data to the map and do a suitability analysis on it, I would go into Add Data, and I'm going to import it from a file. I'm going to browse for that data, and it was on my desktop, and it's called North Carolina Retail. So if I import that onto the map, and right now everything so far is just a real simple process of importing something to your map. When I say next, Now here are my 10 sites on the map. I can, remember my little triangle, I can go in and I can change this, make it counts and amounts and do all kinds of things, but I want to simply have points on the map. I'm going to go next. I'm going to uncluster those, although they're not really clustered. Clusters just means if they're close together, you're just going to see one point, and then as you zoom in, they'll break apart. I'm going to go next, and now you can save only points. So if you're trying to show where competitors are or where your businesses are, you can save these just as points. In this case, I want to create and save sites, and I want to create an area around them. So I'm going to do a 3-mile radius around them, and I'm going to apply. Okay, and sometimes this takes a minute, especially if you have a lot of points. So it's putting the points on the map. It's creating a new layer that will be stored in your project that you can then go turn back on anytime you want. So it's saving my 10 sites. All right, and there they are. Now, I can say I'm done. I can go get reports. I can organize the sites. But in this case, I want to do a suitability analysis. So what is the suitability analysis? We're going to get started here. And let's say that these were sites that I already had in my project and I just turned them back on. Then I could get add sites from projects, or I can start with features on the map. So since they're already turned on, I can start with features that are on the map. Okay? All right, and there they all are. So that's great. If I didn't want to include some, I could uncheck them, but I'm going to keep them all, and I will say next. And here's where this gets fun, because you see right here where it says add criteria. I am going to start by adding variables from the data browser. Now all that means is I'm adding Esri data. And so in this case, I am going to add median household income. And for those of you who aren't familiar with this workflow, if you go into income, you'll see different variables you can choose from. I'm going to choose median household income, and you'll see it goes into my little shopping cart up here. And then I'm going to go back to categories, and we're going to say this is a restaurant. And so I'm going to go into spending, and I'm looking for food within spending. So you see how you can drill down and get to all these wonderful variables. And I'm going to look inside dining out, and I want to look at the index in this area of food away from home. So how is what people spend on food in this area, how does it compare to the national average? The national average being 100. So I'm going to check that. Okay, so now I have 2 variables in my shopping cart, and I'm going to say apply. All right, so you can see that my radius now, they're starting to get colorful. Okay, so that's great. But now I want to add some more criteria. So do you remember the Excel spreadsheet that I showed you? Now I can come in to add criteria, and I can add attributes from my sites. So that just means from your spreadsheet. So if I go into that, then I can say, okay, the 2 variables from in here that I want to pay attention to are available square footage and triple net lease. Okay, I'm going to say okay there. So now I have 4 variables over here. And you'll see that not only do we have 4 variables, but now we can weight those, and we have options to fine-tune them as well. So let's start with the median household income. We don't want these all weighted the same. So we're going to say that median household income isn't as important to us as some other criteria. So we're going to say it's 20%. We're going to weight that at 20%. And we want this to be a real number. We are looking for median household income. Yeah, hopefully you saw what I did here. I went into more options. And we are looking for median household income above $50,000. So you notice the things are happening over here, and now I'm going to lock this, because once you get things set, you want to lock it, and then we can move on and do the same thing. All right, so I'm mapping at an index here on the meals at restaurants. More options. I want at least the national average. I'm going to do this one a little bit faster. At least 100 or above. So at least the national average or above. Once again, I'm going to do a 20% weighting. Now, when this is your own stuff, this makes a whole lot more sense, because you can determine and you can play around with the weighting as you want. So let's say here that we need at least 15,000 square feet. For some reason, and this is something we're talking to Esri about, when it's coming from your own data, you're not able to type it in here, so you can just grab this and pull a little bit. So I'm going to say approximately 15,000 square feet or and above, and we want this at a 30% weighting, so we'll lock that. And then with the triple net lease rate, if we go into more options, we're going to say that we'll only look at something under 18. So $18 per square foot on the triple net lease rate. And we'll lock that. All right, so that's all fine and good. Now, you see this right here. Here's what was added last week. We've had the ability to do the suitability analysis for not a very long time, but for a little while. But now you can save this criteria. So if this is a criteria that you're going to use over and over, then you could name this, so I'm going to name it Webinar 7.6, and I'll save that. And then if I wanted to use that same criteria again, I don't have to go back through what we just did here, assuming that my spreadsheet is set up the same. All right, now what's cool about the suitability analysis is now what it does is it gives you a score based on the data that you put in, based on the data from Esri's variables, and gives you a score and tells you which of these sites is your number one site, your number two site, your number three, and anything that really did not meet the criteria is not even included on the list. And then you could export this, okay, into an Excel spreadsheet. All right, so that's great. Now let's clear this, and let's say that now we wanted to do another suitability analysis, and this time we're going to add sites from project. And I uploaded these sites earlier, so we're going to a completely different state. And not only are we in a different state, but we're doing drive times instead of radius. And so we'll go next. And now if we want to do a suitability analysis on this, then we can go in to use saved criteria. And if I highlight Webinar 7.6 and say use this criteria, then you'll see what it's doing. It immediately applies everything, the weighting, everything, and gives me my, my results right here. So that's what was added, was the ability to save and recall that criteria. All right, I've got to have some questions here. Let me see here. So many of the questions go back to traffic. Okay, Terry, you're clearing the rings and drive times on our labels, but they're still appearing on the PDF. That's interesting, because the PDF should only show what is on your map. You may want to reach out, I would say reach out to me, either me or the support staff, and let us take a look at that. Okay. All right. So for the person who's asking about the save button, let's have a conversation offline about that, because I'm not sure exactly where you're struggling. Okay. So there's a question wanting to see how we added criteria to a new upload. So clarify for me if you're wanting to see that from the second set of points that I uploaded or the first. And I'm going to move on for a second, and then we'll come back to that after we talk for just a moment about infographics. All right, so we've gone through everything that has changed within Business Analyst except for the improvement in infographics. Infographics, very interesting tool, and I think when they were first introduced into Business Analyst, I'll be real honest with you, we did not spend very much time showing them to our members because they were pretty limited. However, Esri has really done some work on these and now creating some things that I think you will find very beneficial in putting together packages or doing presentations to show someone what is happening in an area. So if you have any site and you are able to open the bubble on that site, whether it's a polygon or a radius, you'll see here that there is a link that says infographics. Now, if you open that, there are some ways where you can set your preferences. So you can say, I want to see this as a slideshow, or I want to see it in the full screen. And I'm going to say, I want to see my infographics in a full screen. And so now it's creating that infographic, and you'll be able to see what that looks like. Okay, so this is just a templated infographic that Esri has created, just showing you key facts on this area. So in this radius that we have on the map, if we look at that, it's giving us some key facts on businesses, on education, on employment, demographics, population. And so we can now view that full screen if we want. We can change. We can make it larger, we can make it smaller, and we can print this from right here. We can print it landscape, portrait. So now we're starting to get some real benefits and some real different ways that we can work with this tool. Okay, so let me get back out of here. Okay, so one of the things that you can do now is you can also look at other infographics. This is actually one that I created. So you can start getting a feel for some of the different things that you can create. So in this particular case, I went up here and I added the STDB logo. I said, here's the information that I want. I added an image down here in the bottom left-hand corner and a map. So I can now come in here and change that, or I can use any of these other templated infographics that I want. If I want to edit the one that I just had showing, then I can come in here and I can say edit. I can put in new text. I can put in an image, or I can replace that, and let's say instead of having text there, I can then add data based on any of the facts that we want. So I put in business facts. Okay, so it's very simple to pull in that information. What has changed and what is really going to make things a little bit easier for people is the ability now to use some of the templated infographics that Esri has created and that we have created, and then just add your own twist. So if I go to build infographics and I go to Esri's templates, here are some of their templates. And you see some of these are starting to look like nice little flicks. So you can open this up and then you can add your own logo to it and your own information. Or you can start with a blank template and create everything from scratch. You can have a library of your own templates, such as I have here, And as you see, some of them do become nice little slicks for marketing if you want to. It's taking a moment for that to open. And then you can also take these and you can print them, or you can share them via HTML, and that and put them on your own website. So a lot of different things you can do with these. As I said, we're not going to spend a lot of time on the infographics today because we are going to be doing a whole webinar on these 4 areas with running reports, comparison reports, building infographics, and building reports. But I did want to make you aware of some of the things that you can now do with those infographics. Okay, let me see what questions we have. We're almost back to the hour. Okay, someone's asking about the daytime population. You can find it in when you do a comparison report. If you're looking for it in a templated report, the community profile has it broken down by daytime population and those that are home during the day, and then those that are workers. And I believe the market profile does as well. Oh, any projected traffic count info? Not that I am aware of. And I haven't heard anyone say that that is something that would be added to the site. So, all right. I'm going to stay on for a couple more minutes if there are other questions or anything else that you want to see. But basically, that kind of covers the new things within Business Analyst. I hope that you'll get in there and play around with all of them. Give us your comments. Let us know what you love, what you'd like to see. And we always appreciate you being with us. If you have questions about anything that we covered, please feel free to reach out to info@stdb.com. And remember, it's just info, I-N-F-O, @stdb.com. And we will have this archived and on the Learning Center later today or tomorrow. All right. For anyone who needs to jump off, go ahead and jump off. I am going to stay for a moment. Okay, so question about the flood maps. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can get access to flood maps. And probably I would direct you to another one of our tools within Site to Do Business, and that is our flood map tool. So once you first log into Site to Do Business and you see all of the different tools, Business Analyst being one of them, there's also one called Flood Maps. And it's very simple. You go in there, enter an address, and say get results, and it will give you a 100-year flood risk and a 500-year flood risk. Can you thematically map your own data by zip code? Not exactly, but you can map your own data and when you're doing a suitability analysis. What I would encourage you to do is to go back and watch the video, and then also on the Learning Center, on the trainings and videos page, there is a let me find it. There's a suitability analysis video on here, and you might want to look at that. Are there plans to integrate commercial search with Esri tools? Great question. I do think that we will be integrating commercial search data into our ArcGIS Online account, which then you can access for Business Analyst. So stay tuned for that. All right, please forgive me if I didn't get to your question. Let us know how we can help you. I always appreciate you spending part of your day with us. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to sign off now. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.